Two other stories. The warning by the Ogun State government is coming. The Ogun State government rather has warned its citizens of the flood alert by the federal government, Ministry of Environment. The comment is coming on the heels of another warning by the Ministry of the Environment. That's the National Flood Early Warning Center, which warned that 32 locations across 11 states may be flooded between the 14th of September to 18th. In a statement issued by the Director of Erosion, Flood and Coastal Zone Management, Usman Bokani, the center said rising water levels in the River Gongola, River Benue, and River Niger pose additional risk. The affected areas include Ganye and Natubi in Adamawa, Abinse, Agio, Gogo, Ito, Makodi, Udoma, and Ubiame, Benue, Agima, Rukubi, and Udogbo in Nasarawa, Beli, Seti, and Donga in Taraba states, among others. The warning comes days after torrential rainfall in Zaria, Kaduna State, displaced more than 470 children and destroyed at least 270 homes. On September the 4th, the National Emergency Management Agency said floods had killed 231 people this year, injured 607, while 114 remain missing. Now, the Ogun State government, back to that story, is warning residents in flood-prone communities to relocate immediately. The government says this is due to the expected overflow of rivers and a rise in sea levels in the coming weeks. Communities likely to be affected include Isheri, Akute, parts of Abeokuta, Ayetoro, Iju, and other coastal areas. The State's Commissioner for the Environment, Ola Oresonya, says the flooding could occur between late September and mid-October and may be worsened by heavy rains, tidal lock, and possible water release from Oyon Dam. He adds that the State Emergency Management Agency is on red alert with evacuation camps already prepared. Residents are also advised to avoid borehole water during this period, while fish farmers are urged to harvest their stock to prevent losses. Let's get back to that flood alert issued by the Ministry of Environment. And also we see that Ogun State government is also now issuing some alerts and sensitization of, for its residents. Let's bring in he's the Director, Weather Forecasting Services, Nigeria Meteorological Agency, Abuja, Professor Vincent Uweli. He joins me via Zoom as we try to understand what this all means. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor Uweli.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Some weeks ago, I think you and I also spoke when I think it was NIMET or the Ministry of Environment that also issued a flood alert, and then I think it was a rain alert, and then you had talked about how some states were going to have light rain and other states medium rain, and now we're also getting a flood alert from the Ministry of Environment. I just want to get first of all, what level of response did you get to the initial rain alert that NIMET issued?
Yeah, definitely. From time to time, we issue this alert, 3 days, a day, 2 days, 4 days, 5 days. But the point is that when we issue this alert, the major stakeholders, especially the states and the local government, do not take these alerts very seriously until when the rain is there and the flooding has taken place. So, but I want to say that because we issue 3 days alert from NIMET, and so these three days is enough for our stakeholders, the state governments, and the local government to begin to plan ahead of time, especially the communities where this flood, is going to come, so that they will issue those, the alert that we issue. They will activate, the first responders so that they can, alert the communities and so that they can move on time. We are reactionary instead of being proactive, and we will just thank God that NIMET is on top of his game. We issue 3 days alert, and people do not respond when they're supposed to respond. And so that is why we're having these problems.
And we've also seen a number of casualties really high, over 267, I think that was said by the Ministry of the Environment, a number of deaths and 114 still missing. But I wanted to ask, you mentioned that state governments are not proactive, they are reactionary. What sort of proactive steps do you think they can take now that there is another warning, flood warning alert?
Yeah, so as we have issued this flood warning alert from Federal Ministry of Environment, what they should do is to, activate the response, mechanism of the state. If they don't have any response mechanism in place, they need to, activate it or put it in place so that they can now activate that response team to begin to go to those communities. Well, of course, we have NEMA at the federal level. We're supposed to have SEMA at the state level. And unfortunately, most states do not have SEMA, which is State Emergency Management Agency. But a lot of emergencies are handled under the office of the deputy governor of most of the states. And so, but what we're trying to say now that these alerts have been issued for these states, they should activate their responders so that everybody will be on alert and so that we will not record any casualties.
But we find that most states that have SEMA, and most of them work in collaboration with NEMA, what they do is to wait for the disaster to happen and then step in for rescue efforts. But is there any chance that NEMA works with this state, or NIMET rather, works with these states to help them develop proactive measures and not reactionary measures?
Yeah, of course, that responsibility is with NEMA and not NIMET. We must work within what the law permits us to do. Is emergency management is within the office of NEMA and SEMA. So we cannot, by law, move further to do all of that. But if we are asked to support, or to, in any way, we can, but it's not within our purview. The law does not permit us to do that. That is where we are. It is NEMA and the SEMA that are expected to do all of this. And they have what it takes. They have the units that are created by law within these agencies to carry out these functions. So it's their responsibility by law and not NIMET's responsibility.
What about residents? What should they be doing in areas where state governors have not taken responsibility? We see the Ogun State government moving quickly to move residents, but in states where governments or governors are not taking responsibility, what should residents be doing?
Now, for us, if residents get this information, they should begin to act. They should begin to leave, those areas that have been, marked as the areas that the flood will affect. They should, on their own, begin to move without anybody asking them to move. But unfortunately, most Nigerians do not want to leave their ancestral home, especially in issues of this nature. But we're trying to say that let there be a attitudinal change of Nigerians to ensure that when these alerts are released, they should leave the place so that maybe there will be no casualty. Then after that period, they can come back to their residential, abode and all of that. So they should take action for themselves without waiting for government.
Professor Welly, thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Director of Weather Forecasting Services, Nigeria Meteorological Agency, Abuja.
Thank you very much for having me.